it's probably not run by Chinese people anyway.
No, it's just
probably
the independent state of Westmoreland. Yeah.
Actually, it's run by the Taiwanese, which are not actually part of China.
Quite possibly. Yeah.
So right, it's going on. It's live on YouTube now. So so we got Andy who's just talked about Westmoreland. So I'm just gonna we are formally started now and done. Excellent. Right, so we've got a few people away, so which is odd. It's 7:39, and we're just going to go through my little register. This only applies to Margaret because it turns her on.
Yes, sir.
Paul,
Yes, sir.
Shut up. We're going to do the register in no particular order. Paul, Margaret.
Yes, sir.
Right, the rest of you don't have to respond. Trina.
Yes.
And Sabita's not here. I don't know where she is. Who else have we got? We got Andy, the crisp man. We got Claire, which is brilliant. And we got no Roger tonight, which is odd. So we got Claire, that's brilliant. Peter, that's brilliant. We've got so any news from Sandra, Pete?
Yes, her grandson's taking her out to a meal tonight.
Oh, good.
Great.
So we won't put on
the Chinese then.
I'm not sure where she's going.
They're
Yet.
shut.
Oh yeah, no, they are shut. Yeah,
Well, yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Well, that's ruled that one out, hasn't it? Right, so we got David Rogers. He was here first, and we got no Jess, and we got Pat as well. So we got one. Oh, we got 4 away tonight, which is a shame. Right, anyway, so tonight is going to be one of those that I well, there's a lot of effort gone into this one simply because it's a subject that I've done a lot of research into over different times. So what I'd like to do is just start off with any news. And is there any news from you, Pete? And can you explain, Pete, a little bit about last Wednesday and why you've got that in your hand, please, Pete?
Well, we talked about ley lines and dowsing. Now, this crystal will answer questions. If you can ask me a question of which you know the answer, it must be a yes or no answer, and ask the crystal, and it will tell you the answer.
Go on, Margaret. Go on. You're the one.
Test
him out. Go for it. Do your worst.
Is Pete 50 years old?
But he knows the answer to that.
Yeah, no, that don't count. Margaret, don't be so.
It's going around in a circle, which says no.
Oh, no, you're moving it with your hand.
No, I'm not. I'm holding it by a bead. And the bead is on a bottom, so I cannot influence what it does.
Margaret, that's 400 lines by next week because you're not taking it seriously. Drina. Go on, Dream.
Does Christmas fall on the 25th of December?
But he knows the answer to that one as well.
Oh, for God's sake. Right, that's 400 lines for you. Right, okay, let's just get Claire.
See the way it's going, look.
Oh, for God's sake, this is just not... All right, okay, guys.
Yes.
Oh.
I'll do one car. Is my car blue?
Ah.
Well, it's going around in a circle. It says no.
Correct.
Right, all right then. Well, okay, one more, right? So, right, Pat, you're probably a skeptic or a not skeptic. I don't know what the hell you are, but anyway, ask a question.
Do I have 3 children?
It's starting the circle. It says no.
That's right, I got 4.
Oh, yes. Hang on a minute. If he said it's starting a circle, oh, I'm not going there, right?
Which direction?
No. Hey, can I ask you a personal question, Pat? Are all the children yours?
Yes.
Right, okay. Right, anyway, thanks for that, Pete. So on a Wednesday, what we've been doing, we looked at last week. On a Wednesday evening, we looked at 6 o'clock at ley lines. And this week, we're going to be looking at avenues and we're going to be looking at cursus monuments. And a certain area of archaeology that I do is based on the teachings of Tim Ingold, which is basically the line can either be straight or curved, but everything goes in a direction. And that's what we do on a Wednesday. Okay, Andy, you're looking quite dapper and sexy tonight with that nice jumper. You look really cool, you know. So actually, it suits you, Andy. It's the first thing I've ever seen you wear that suits you. Andy, anything you want to say tonight?
I don't know whether anyone's mentioned it earlier, but there was an article came up this week about them finding a bone of a child, I think it was, in Germany.
Israel.
No, it was in Germany, wasn't it?
Oh,
Oh, it
I
might have
read
been in
about
Israel.
one in Israel.
But yeah, taking a modern humanoid, taking it back 10,000 years further than anything before, but I can't remember any details about it. Karen put me onto it. So if you know more about it, Margaret, do tell.
This was in Neanderthal.
Well, it was. They found this bone back in 1966 in Israel, but they've only just been able to date it with the.
Oh no, this is another one. It's a different
this
one.
is another one. Yeah, it was in Germany.
Oh, is this another one?
Right.
Yeah.
No, that sounds even more interesting. Do talk.
Well, it was just part of the vertebrae, just a tiny little bit, but they dated it to 1.5 million years old.
Wow.
The only one that's older than that came out of Africa was found in Georgia, and that was 1.8. I think it was 1.8 million years old.
Wow.
But they were a different species, so they're saying there were probably several different species that came out of Africa to different places. These are just two that they found.
If you want to go with that take. Thank you.
But the one in Israel matched the same fossils and things that they found in East Africa of the same date.
Yeah, no, that's and basically the other, Jessica's just joined us. The other one as well in Germany was I think it was Germany, but it was in Europe.
Yeah.
The other find proves that you've got Homo sapiens, and then you've got Neanderthal, and then you've got Homo sapiens, and you've got Neanderthal. Basically, what's happening is that in certain types, in certain areas, you've got evidence of Homo sapiens disappearing, and then you've got them being replaced by Neanderthals, and you've got them being replaced by Homo sapiens and then Neanderthal. So it's a really interesting evidence to say that there's continuity between the two groups. And this is what that bone that Andy's talking about means.
But wasn't it Germany? Yeah.
Was it a tooth? I can't remember now.
It was actually a tooth. Yeah, it was a tooth. It was actually what I'm going to do. I've got my my other computer here. So tooth.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah.
Tooth dating to 50,000 years ago, I think. So that's that. So tooth discovery. Here we go. Well, read this out. It's the first time archaeologists have found evidence of alternating groups of Homo sapiens sapiens, and Homo sapien Neanderthals. And this is actually not in Germany. This is actually a cave in France. And it basically it sort of changes the narrative, because what we usually talk about is that we get Neanderthals and then we get Homo sapiens, and the Neanderthals never ever return. Well, this actual, there is evidence now to say that this Homo sapien tooth was sandwiched between layers of Neanderthal remains. So there was Neanderthals, Homo sapiens, and Homo sapien Neanderthals in alternate layers, and then you've got Homo sapiens again. So this basically says that we don't have an extinction event. What this basically says is that Homo sapiens didn't go out wiping out Neanderthals, because if that's the case, then the Neanderthals return. So this is what this tooth tells us.
Right.
So, right, any other news from anybody? David?
No, thank you.
Drina?
They found a 5,000-year-old bone in the Thames.
Oh, yes, yeah, I saw that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yes, I've heard about that. Basically, it tells us that, you know, we've got people in that region. And the other thing as well is we don't have much prehistoric evidence before the Roman era associated with that part of the Thames at all. So this is why that's significant.
They found an underwater Stonehenge as well, haven't they?
Oh, yeah.
Is that the one on Orkney?
No, this one's, I believe it's in the Mediterranean.
Oh, right, nice. I'd like that'd be good to have a look at that again. Yes, exactly.
And
Good.
it's much older apparently than Stonehenge.
Right. Okay. So so you're saying at Stonehenge found. Have you any idea where that was?
Off the top of my head, no.
Right. Yeah. It's right. Okay. Oh,
Underwater one.
right. Underwater. Okay. Anyone else got anything else to say before we crack on, Pat?
I'm just looking at that drum, you know, that they, that stone carved drum is actually found in 2015, but it's just recently they decided it was identified as a significant piece, you know. It's going to the British Museum in the Stonehenge, you know, exhibition they've got, the British Museum.
Yeah, yeah. What Pat's saying, they found these little stone drums, and they think they've found about 5 in Britain, and they found a really, it's carved into stone, isn't it? And it's a really good example of a prehistoric artifact, which is going on display. That's right, Pat.
And there were children buried with it, 3 children, supposedly one larger child holding 2 smaller ones or something. Sad. You know?
Yeah, that is sad. And obviously the drum is associated with that. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Correct. Anyway, thanks for that. That was good. I like that. Any other input? This thing that Peter's on about is I find it difficult to believe, but here we go. Stonehenge-like structure found under Lake Michigan.
Oh no.
Under Lake Michigan.
That's not the one I was on about.
Oh my God, I thought it was.
No.
But basically a Stonehenge-like arrangement under Lake Michigan, which is 40 foot under the water, found using sonar technology. If that's not the one Pete was on about, oh my God, we found something else there. Okay.
Blimey,
Right, so,
all over the place.
okay, everybody now, Jessica, anything you want to say? Because I want to crack on. No? Okay. Right, so today, I don't want any interruptions today. So somebody's got some background noise on there. So can you mute yourself, please? Oh, that worked. They're gone. They muted themselves. So I'm gonna give you a bit of background now. One of the things that I was going to do before the silly pandemic awoke us all into a stupor in March 2020 was that I had planned for later on that year a live audience with karl-james, and what that would have been was I was to have a 2.5 hour session, and we had a hall booked in Chepstow, and it was we had everything planned. It was great, and we had a website dedicated to it. And one of the topics that we were going to look at, the first half was going to be looking at the Pavlan Cave forgery. Now, I haven't got all those images in front of me at all today because they're on my other computer, which is which I haven't been able to get access to for quite some months. So what I've done today is I put together a completely different presentation, but it's led me back to the same conclusion that I made and the statement that I've made, Pavlan Cave forgery. Now, I would say that 99% of archaeologists in this country would disagree with that statement. But then again, back in 1912, 1913, 99% of the archaeologists in Britain probably agreed with the Piltdown Man forgery. So, you know, that's quite a bold statement to actually make. So what I'd like to do, I've got loads of images to go through today, and I've got a little bit of an extract from an original document from the 1800s, and I've got a diary from a guy by the name of Dilwyn. And Dilwyn's diary tells us more about the Pavlan Cave story than what the archaeologists have actually discovered. So what we're going to do, we're going to read out some statements about the Pavlan Cave. And one of the statements about the Pavlan Cave takes us via the Museum of Natural History. So that's one statement we're going to read out. We're also going to read out an overview, which will bring us back. We'll look at Dilwyn's diaries, and I'll mention the bone caves. And if anyone wants to go on Wikipedia today, then they're not going to find much about the Pavlan Cave anyway. So what we are going to do is we're going to look at some images. We are being joined by three other people as well online. So obviously welcome you guys as well. So when you see, you will note that there are a number of illustrations I would like us and maps and so on that we're going to actually look at today. So if we go here and we go up, you see there's quite a few. And what we're going to start off with is the Pavlan Cave down the Gower. Now we're going to show you where this is. But one of the remarks I will make straight away is that you can only get into this cave at access it from the roof. Now, one of the clear areas of my speculation about this being a fake comes via the following statement I'm going to issue now. In very stormy weather, water
Carl, I think your connection's a bit poor. I'm not sure whether anyone else can hear or not. No.
No, we can't.
Oh, he's gone. Pat, you're the host. Could I ask you a big favour? Could you make me co-host, if that's okay? If you click on participants and find my name, and then if you click on the side by my name, it should say more. It could say just make host. And I can take the power off Carl then. Oh, he's back. He's back.
I don't know what happened then. Well, get straight into it.
Oh, we panicked. We missed you.
Jess, tell me my last word, please. I need to get back to that last word, please.
Oh gosh, I can't remember. I think you were just talking about where it was really. Were you starting off that?
I'm there. Right. So with this cave, in very stormy conditions, this cave will become flooded. It's very near the coastline. In fact, it's just overlooking the sea today. Now, it wasn't very different in the 1820s. Now, if there were layers of archaeology within this cave in the 1820s, they will have been affected by flooding and contamination. The same flooding and contamination, which would mean that there would be no evidence in the cave in the first place. Now, put that into your mind and put it somewhere else for a moment. We've got lots of images to look at. Now, Pavlan Cave itself, and Alice Roberts was just mentioned, is meant to be a key piece of evidence telling us about the upper Paleolithic period within our prehistoric archaeological past in Britain. But when you start looking at the ins and outs, you start to see there's something not quite right about the discovery. And it's something that very few archaeologists have ever questioned. One thing I'm finding more and more is that when people write things down, they just repeat them. For example, my own local town of Barry tells us that in the mid-1400s, the Romilly family acquired Barry as an estate. And nobody's deemed to question that on any Barry history websites. The Romilly family didn't come to Barry until the early 1800s, which is 400 years later. But then the myths and legends still prevail. One of the things I invite you to do when we come across a subject such as this is to question, always question the history and archaeology. There are some wonderful images of the Pavlan Cave, but if you do look at very, very high tide, that cave itself on the right is lapped by the water level below. And there she is, Pavlan Cave again. In other words, Goat Hole Cave. Now, what I need to do is have some really nice images in front of you, which we've got a fair few to look at today. And that is a nice image. Everyone likes a bit of water, don't they? And when we look at this, I can remember being in a room one day. It was Bridgend, and I had this image showing behind me. And what you can clearly see is a black line there, the top of that black line, which basically laps and goes slightly into that cave that we know as Goat Hole Cave. That little black line there is a line of various different algae that live in the Carboniferous rock. They only live in the Carboniferous rock because it's very moist and it's at very high water level. That's where the water level actually gets to. So you start to think about what's going on at Pavlan Cave. So what I'd like to do today is one of those not forced lectures. It actually gives you a lot of evidence, a lot of things to think about. And then it gets me knocking the evidence down, because there's nothing more frustrating than a piece of archaeology that's not been thoroughly investigated properly. Now, one point I'd like to make, if nobody has the foggiest idea where this cave is, if you go down to South Wales, on the Gower Peninsula, it's that thing that sticks out. And on the end, it's called Worm's Head. Right? It's like a little sausage that sticks out from the South Wales. And on the end of that is Worm's Head. And just a little bit below that is this cave. And actually discovered and being discovered into the early 1800s and beyond are over a dozen caves across the Gower formed out of the soft lias limestone, which is formed within the Carboniferous limestone. You find all these caves rich in prehistoric archaeology, which we'll come on to, not today, but in the near future, but we will mention them by the end. So what I'm going to be very, very mindful is to try and keep this going today. And I've got two bits of technology. I've got a laptop in front of me. I keep pressing the screen and I've just realized that it's not an iPad. So there's an iPad that I'm using to teach with today. So what I'm going to do here, it's an extract. It's written by a woman called Marianne Summer. And she writes the following. And this was published in 2004. An amusing account of a cave in Wales, William Buckland and the Red Lady of Paviland. And you open with an academic saying that, an amusing account of a cave in Wales. Doesn't sound very academic, does it? And it's not an amusing account at all. This is a story of mammoth skulls accidentally being lost from William Buckland's desk at his university, Oxford University. Does anyone know how big a mammoth skull is? So basically it's a mammoth skull with tusks that goes disappearing from his office. I always make the jest, but this is serious archaeology that is believed by many. But I always make the jest that Reverend Buckland took an excavated mammoth skull with tusks, puts it on his desk, Oxford University, and the next day he reports it's gone missing. It must have fallen on the floor. That's not funny. In 1823, the discovery was made before that. It's a little bit like Howard Carter's find, but wherein Howard Carter's find of 100 years later, the contents of Tutankhamun's tomb have always been there since Tutankhamun was interred there. But this cave, I don't believe one jot. I'm going to put it in there straight away. I believe the evidence was collected and placed into the cave to come up with one of Britain's greatest fakes. In 1823, the first reader of geology at Oxford University, reading from Marianne Summer, William Buckland, who lived between 1784 and 1856, unearthed the human skeleton known popularly as the Red Lady in Pavlan Cave, South Wales. Now, can we just take a bone of time to think about this? And that's not a pun. Even today, they refer to it as the Red Lady of Pavlan Cave. 200 years later, it's not a lady at all. And to be honest with you, when you think about the Red Lady of Pavlan Cave, you think about so much that there's a full body there, everything, all the appendages, even the squeal. But I would say there's not even a fifth of the bones of a human body that was found at Pavlan Cave. A disarticulated, where's the rest of it? Well, the Red Lady is valued today as a central testimony of early Upper Paleolithic humans in Britain. Buckland considered the skeleton as a post-Diluvian age artifact that had been found there after the biblical deluge. This was found when even the likes of Reverend Buckland still believed that the earth had been formed around 4,000 years ago. Actually, 4,000 years BC to be precise. Rather than viewing Buckland as either an obscurist or as having worked entirely within ordinary scientific practice, this academic, Marianne Summer, who I would say that you need to read her work, the paper focuses on how he managed to create an institution and conceptual space for his geology at one of the centres for the education of Anglican ecclesiastical clergy, Oxford, and on the impact the sometimes paradoxical demands had on his interpretation of prehistoric human relics, the Red Lady in particular. So in other words, he's trying to fit this find within the biblical chronology. Remember, we're quite some years before Charles Darwin. We're quite some years before sense. Buckland, this is a very important statement made by an academic who was writing this paper in 2004. She tells us, Marianne Summer tells us, Buckland was famous, if not notorious, for his peculiar humor. Mammoth skulls on desks. The distracting and cathartic qualities of which, it will be argued, served as strategy in the advancement of unorthodox ideas or for glossing over inconsistencies. Do you want me to carry on with this lecture? Because what we need to do is I want you to have all the tools to look at this properly. And you can either agree with me or don't. This is what we also say. Now, it goes on. Have you heard of the woman so long underground? Have you heard of the woman that Buckland has found with her bones of imperial hue? Red ochre. O fair ones of modern days, hang down your heads. The antediluvian robe when dead, only granted in lifetime to you. So we've got a nice little pro statement there back in the day about this picture girl of prehistory when he was in fact a bloke. Now, if you want to track that down, it's an amusing account of a cave in Wales, William Buckland, 1784, 1856, and the Red Lady of Pavland, Marianne Sommer, Sommer. And it's actually published, strangely enough, by Cambridge University Press of an Oxford academic. It gets better. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to backtrack. I'm going to backtrack on my squalms and my statements. What we're going to do, we're going to read something now from the Natural History Museum. And you're talking, if you ever do go to the Natural History Museum, let me know in advance, because you might get a free ticket to go into an exhibition. Because if you go to a certain exhibition, you can hear my voice in the dinosaur gallery talking about dinosaur footprints. But you don't need to know that. So what I'm going to do, I want to read out what I've got in front of me. Are we still hearing me, folks?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. I'm glad you're listening. So here we go. And there's some of the bones there. Now, not all of them, but there's not much more to add to that. There's the ribs are missing. The left humerus, ulnar, and the radius. The whole right-hand side is gone. There's no right-hand ribs. There's, in fact, most of the right-hand side of the body's gone. There's no skull. And there's no vertebra. It's quite bleak, and that's what we're seeing. So what we're going to do now, here we go. This is what they say about in the Museum of Natural History in London, the Red Lady of Paviland, also still titled the Red Lady of Paviland in 2022. They know it's not the Red Lady. I'll forget it. In 1823, geologists excavating the remains of mammoths in Goat's Hole Cave, also known as Pavlan Cave, South Wales, made an intriguing discovery: a partial human skeleton covered in red ochre, accompanied by shell beads and carved ivory, and no doubt a statue of Lloyd George. The find was made by William Buckland. That's a lie. That is a complete lie. That's a lie. In Dilwyn's accounts, he wasn't the one who found it.
He wasn't.
What was that?
It was the Talbot Sisters that owned the peninsula.
I'm glad. Who's been doing reading here today?
It's all in my Alice Roberts book.
Shut up. We don't want to know what Alice Roberts says. But actually, oh my God, Alice Roberts agrees with me on one thing. That's brilliant. The find was made by William Buckland. Back to this account. We're trying to do an unbiased account. We're going to go with what this says. Oxford University's first reader in geology. Obviously, the presence of the beads and other ornaments led him to conclude that the bones were of a woman, and the find quickly became known as the Red Lady of Pavland. Buckland also assumed that the Red Lady was from the Roman period around 2,000 years ago. Well, that wouldn't be correct because the Romans didn't get here. Yeah, even those dates are wrong. We now know that they are the remains of a young man and far more ancient. In 2008, scientists used improved radiocarbon dating techniques, which showed that the bones are around up to 34,000 years old from a less cold episode during the last glaciation. Well, we are, yeah, we're still in a glacial period, but we know what we're talking about. Making the Red Lady one of the oldest examples of a ceremonial burial in Western Europe. Stone tools and buried animal bones show that he could have been one of the hunters that used the cave over many thousands of years. Stop! I just tear my head in. Stop, right? Just stop. Because back in the day, that cave itself would have been part of a long cave system, right? Yeah, it would have been the back of a cave. Yeah. And since this has all been eroded away. So the network has been eroded away quite dramatically. And back then, this cave itself was probably about 70 miles away from the sea. Those are two facts. We could say that. But in more recent years, any archaeology that may have been in that cave would have been long since washed away. And it's funnily enough, when archaeologists have gone there trying to excavate since, all the layers contained in the archaeology are gone. There's nothing left because they've either been dug away or they've been eroded away by the sea. Now, if they've been dug away, am I actually saying that there was something in that cave initially? No, I'm not. What we are going to do is when we look at the Dilwyn records, there is something very different going on. It's almost as if it's a boys' party trying to prove something, under 100 years before Piltdown Man. Where do we come in with the Red Ochre? How is the body stained with red ochre? Well, let's be clear on what I mean by a fake, and we've got to be very, very clear on this. All the artifacts are genuine, including the Roman artifacts. Yeah, and the Roman pottery. Yeah, which are 32,000 years forward in time, but that's something else, right? I'm saying all the artifacts are genuine, but I'm saying that they've come from elsewhere and been collected together to create an artifact in the cave to prove, if we want to go back to this esteemed academic who's Marianne Summer, year ago, served as strategy in the advancement of unorthodox ideas or for glowing over inconsistencies. So in other words, this itself is key to what we're doing today. Now I do apologize. I've jumped the gun. I said, no, let's, with the Natural History Museum. You can imagine what it'd be like live doing this with, we even had pyrotechnics as well with my live show, but it never happened because of COVID. Now, how he died remains a mystery. Yeah, it's always going to remain a mystery. But the evidence indicates that he was buried ceremonially. Where does the red ochre come into this? Has the red ochre actually been tested as being genuinely associated with the bones? But that's another lecture. Scientists are looking to extract DNA from one of the leg bones to find out more about who he was and where he came from. Now that's going to be a clincher, isn't it? And there is one other thing. When we do the other bone caves, there's another cave that is a candidate for where some of these artifacts originally came from. And you are very right. Thank you very much, Margaret, for assisting me along my way today. This is all associated with the Talbot family and Dilwyn. This is all associated with estates that they had access to. a land that they were able to explore. Now, this is all part of the key nuances of the discovery. So what we're going to do now, we've looked at this, and we've seen somewhat of the context of where we need to be. So do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to spoil this today because I've got my Wikipedia thing in front of me. But I'm looking at it and thinking, there's nothing I haven't already said. It's near Portine and Rosilly, it's Gower's Peninsula. We've mentioned 1823, we mentioned all that. All that's gone. And I'm not going to mention any of that there. And the interesting stuff that we've got at Paviland is a few other interesting dates. There was another exploration in 1912, and that exploration in 1912 offered us more evidence, supposedly, of the Pavlan Cave being the place of these finds originally. We've got radiocarbon dates that take us into looking at the bones themselves. The bones now, not the soil and the other evidence in the cave, the radiocarbon dating evidence takes us to the 1960s when a certain Kenneth Oakley had given us a very early date for the Pavlan Cave archaeology of 18,460 years before present, which would make it significantly one of the oldest sets of buried human remains in Britain. The other dates that we've got in 2009 take the discovery at least to 33,000 years ago. Now, agree, this entry here, agree, it does the 70 miles thing that I've mentioned. It says that it wasn't on the coast back then. It says that the temperature may have been not as cold as we thought, but it was bloody cold in the winter months. One interesting thing that we can say, and that's the Wikipedia entry gone. I do say that occasionally Wikipedia is useful because it gets me to the point and I can pick out things and think, well, like, that's right. But I've nearly done the Wikipedia stuff, so I'm not even saying going on it today. What we got from the bone protein is that the person had a diet at least 20% fish, which is rather interesting. And then what we do find is a large collection of flints, teeth, bones, needles, bracelets, and other bits and pieces that are on display and are in store in Swansea, Cardiff, Oxford, British Museum, under people's beds all over the place. And the one thing about this is that because of the hype associated with Paviland, it takes away where I want to be. Now, if I don't pick this up today, there's a little thing in here which if I don't pick this up, let's just do this. Now, one of the things that we do know, and I know that Margaret might be reading this in Alice Roberts' book, but we do know of some Roman coins that were found in the cave. We do know some pottery that was found in the cave as well. Now, what the hell is this doing in there? And you start to think, well, that really changes things. And then you start to think about Buckland's methodology. He thinks, well, we've got Roman coins, we got this pottery. That obviously proves that this is a Roman prostitute or a Roman witch or something along those lines. So do you know what? Wikipedia's done. So what I'd like to do is I've got another nice source here from another writer, and it's rather interesting, this one. I like this one. And this guy is given a grant by the Arts Council of Wales. He's a chap by the name of Craig Roberts. It's quite a nice little interesting piece. Again, nobody's questioning the evidence here. Would you know, is this definitely the site, the original site of the find? So anyway, what I'd like to do is because this is actually slightly wearing me out, because I'm trying to really get into this. So let's see what other images that we've actually got here. Now this one. This is rather interesting. So what we've got number 2. That's Pavlan Cave. And then what we do have is a smattering of Paleolithic finds. One in Germany, number 1. We've got 3, 4. We've got 2 in France. 1 in northern Italy. We've got another one in Germany, number 6. I think number 7 and 8 are Austria, aren't they? I think that's right. And then that basically gives you a penchant for our Paleolithic in within this side of Europe. Now, take ourselves back out of this, and we go and we try and understand where we are. So here we go, like that one there. There's our Pavlan Cave. And what we also need to be aware of is this one here, Cat Hole. Now, I'm going to be doing Cat Hole in the near future. Now, there's a valley which is associated with Cat Hole on the Gower. And they've got Tooth Hole Cave there as well. And there's a number of other caves along that valley. And we did do this before, actually. I think I did it with Andy and the old gang back in the Institute. And I remember saying that we've got all these caves with all this evidence in them. And I really, at that time, didn't really realize what we had or what we were looking at. And what we were looking at was a valley known as the Rhondda Heritage Park. And that valley itself has got loads of prehistoric, Mesolithic, Paleolithic, Neolithic, Roman, medieval, everything, Bronze Age, Iron Age, everything within that valley. And it's almost as if it's like a little sweet shop of prehistoric archaeology, unlike the forced information that we get with Paviland. Now, the big argument, again, I would have is if the layers were still intact at Pavlan Cave, what we might be able to understand is where we find, you've got a load of bones here. That one there, that one is actually mammoth ivory. Okay, it's a pendant that was actually worn around somebody's neck. And these are all Oxford University images. We've got those things that are referred to as wands. And a number of them were found as well. We've got a nice set of ribs, don't we? Look at them, a nice set of ribs. And when you see a nice set of ribs like that, and they're bigger ribs, you've got to ask yourself the question, why is it the bones that have survived, and why is it a number of the other bones haven't survived? So going into the deep cave, here we go. So what you can say, oh, okay, a storm may wash everything out. But when you actually compare that, most of the evidence, not in the back there, most of the evidence that is described as being found, hang on a minute, there we go. That little nice plan there, you can see there that the evidence is at a slant. It's actually slanting downwards. So how is it going to be that well preserved in a cave like this in the first place? So if we actually go back again, hang on a minute, let's just do that there. Hang on a minute. Oh God, hang on. There we go. Can you see what we're looking at? So it just doesn't add up. It really, really doesn't add up how that could be like that. It's it's not going to be the case. It's not. I've been an archaeologist for too long to realise that things don't happen like that, because if you look at the mouth of the cave, you've got water washing in here and flooding and knocking everything away. That would be long eroded away, and I'm really struggling with what we're presented with. So what I'm going to do now, we're going to have a little more look at some more of these images. And there we go. There's our goat hole cave. There it is, far away from Swansea. So I would like to look at this account in front of me, written by this Craig Roberts. And this is sort of a nice, interesting overview. And then we look at some more images, and we look at the Dilwyn diaries, which has a really nice chunk of information. And it's quite a lengthy entry that we're going to actually look at. But before we do that, let's sort of get in there and try and understand what's going on. Look at that very interesting geology there. And this is what really upsets me. And the reason why this really upsets me is the artist must have been sniffing newsprint when he put this together. So, Margaret, have you still got that book open?
I've got the book here, yeah.
Close the page.
Oh, okay.
Now, Margaret, it's just going to be me and you. Can you imagine we're together and we're having a romantic meal, hand over the table, and I'm saying, Margaret, what do you feel about this illustration? What is wrong with it? Go on, Margaret. Chuck
Well,
it at
it
me.
looks a bit modern. It doesn't look of the time.
This is the one that they displayed at the National Museum of Wales very, very proudly.
Mm. Doesn't look, I mean, the body was meant to be 34,000 years old, wasn't it?
Yes.
Mm.
Okay, let's put that back there. Right, there's a few things that what is wrong is that hole. You can see that there.
Mm-hmm. There's
no sign of any erosion. And the other thing as well is the space inside that cave is vast.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're all standing and it's all level, right? And there's another thing as well is, and you know what? Oh God, I just remembered something. Do you know when you're presenting something and you think you've got all the information, right? And one of your key pieces of evidence to tell you that this was not positioned there in the first place is to do with the staining of the bone, right? And Margaret, I need to keep that in my head. So what else is wrong with this illustration? Yeah, go on. Can you spot what I'm thinking?
What
am I thinking? The bones are stained with red ochre.
Yeah.
Go on.
Where have they got the red ochre from? Is it from a nearby seam? Where did they get the red ochre from? It wouldn't have been in the cave, would it? Where did they get that from?
The red ochre wouldn't have been in the cave at all. So you're looking at a red sandstone, which would have needed to have been brought in from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a limestone.
No, it's a sandstone.
It's sandstone.
Red ochre is a sand. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's full of sesqui oxides. Basically, it's formed when there was a lake, a red sandstone lake. This is what red ochre is. So that would have had to have been brought here.
Yeah. No mammoths, no animal bones.
Yes, we got loads of bones. We're going to do all that, apparently.
Why would they carry a great big heavy mammoth head into the cave. They're supposing it's possible that a mammoth could have wandered into the cave. It was big enough to mammoth.
No, that's not in the book. Please tell me it's not.
Well, this is one. No, she's just putting forward lots of ideas that other archaeologists have put forward.
I wish you'd shut up. Right, have you? This is a mammoth skull, right? That's not exactly. So that's a, I don't know, a 2 or 3 centile-year-old mammoth, right? It's like it's middle of the range. How, even if you've got a small mammoth skull, right? Even if it's a baby mammoth, right? So it's going to be, I don't know, a quarter of that size, right? Which is still going to be 5 or 6 times bigger than that guy's head. How are you going to lose that on your desk? And how are you going to get that wandering into the cave?
Well, apparently it wasn't complete. It was in pieces.
Well, there's one thing, right? We've got no evidence it ever existed because it disappeared.
No, it's only his say-so.
Yes, now we're going there. Right, okay. I'm glad nobody has butted in because this is a really good moment. Because it's a really good moment between you and I because this is flowing really well. So what I'm going to do, yeah, when we think about where is it? Where's my image? Hang on. Where's my bones? Right, okay. It's not right. The red staining on the bones. Now I've already, I remember looking at this in detail in the past, and we should be having a break now, but we're going to keep going, right? Now, when they display this in the museum, it's missing all its context. It's missing the wands. It's missing missing the mammoth skull. It's missing the periwinkles. 2 handfuls of periwinkles, for example, those little tiny winkles that I used to eat when I was a child, right? It's missing all those. It's missing all the other artifacts, right? And all the other bones and so on and so on. Loads of things are gone, right? There is 2 points. For that bone to be stained red, it would have had to have been bone in the first place. Yeah. Because the effect of having clothes and all the rest of it, right, over time will have denuded the reactive property of the red ochre, or the red sandstone. It would have denuded the ability to be able to fuse onto the bones because there would be all rodents and stuff on it as well. And that's the other thing as well, is that there's no evidence of activity involving these bones either, because if you know what I mean, they're not that's those bones that you can see are in fairly good state of preservation. So if they're in a fairly good state of preservation, where are the rest of the bones? And it happens to be that that the parts of the body that require a lot of digits, other than the feet bones there, are missing. Where's the hand bones? You know, where are the rib? Where are the other smaller rib bones?
Well, couldn't they have been taken away by scavenging animals?
The little
bones?
No, it's usually the long bones that are taken away. But however, the point I'm trying to make, I'm glad you're knocking me with that, right? The one point I'd like to make is that there's something very suspicious about the evidence, right? And the other thing that should be asked is whether all the bones there are actually from the same person.
Well, haven't they got the bones in Oxford? Haven't they examined them?
There's mixtures of bones in different localities, right? So what we're going to do, there's another little slide on here as well. And oh god, there was another little bit of a slide on here which I'm going to find. Hang on a minute. Let's just type in this. It's gone off my screen a minute. Hang on a minute. Paviland. The other thing as well is there's so little in regards to material, in regards to photographs, because so little has survived. So Pavlan Cave, you type in Pavlan Cave artifacts on Google. By the way, there's another search engine that's come out that if you join it, you actually get to make contributions to tree planting. If you can find it, I think it's called Escora or something. So what we've got the different bones here, and you can see. You start to get an idea that obviously the smaller bones are missing as well. You just got the long toe bones, and even when you go down to that detail, and the thing is with the ribs, for example, and there's handfuls of these periwinkles being found, and we've only got one or two left. You know, there's lots missing with the find. There's lots of flints and so on, but they could have come from anywhere. And this is the thing that we're going to look at with the Dilwyn diaries. And I've got to be very careful that you don't feel I'm lecturing at you and trying to prove a point. If anyone feels, I don't mind it. I've got tough skin with this subject, right? If anyone says to me, actually, Carl, you're trying to prove a point, you're trying to lecture us, right? I don't mind you telling me that thing. And actually, what I'm going to do, Margaret, as we've had a little, we're going to take a break now. Margaret, do you feel I'm lecturing you, or how do you feel that this is coming out today?
No, it's interesting, another point of view. But it seems that the only reason the Buckland thought it was a woman was because of the artifacts that were left in the cave were rather feminine things, the periwinkle shells, etc. So for him, he did think, first of all, it was male, but it was the artifacts that led him to believe that it was female. And he used to have male-only talks where women were not allowed. And he made out that it was almost like a little casino. And some of the artifacts were counters, and that men would gather, and that she was a prostitute, and it was like a little gaming room. And at these talks that he gave, it was definitely men only, no women allowed.
And who actually made the discovery then? Can you remind me?
The discovery of the bones?
Yeah, who actually found the
original,
cave?
Well, it was the Talbot Sisters.
And they were female, weren't they?
They were female, yes. And in fact, he married Mary, somebody or other, who did all of the illustrations in his books. And none of these women that helped him were ever mentioned.
It's funny that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the other thing as well is, as a female type of thing, these are female artifacts that have been found.
Mm. And he also liked to interpret the Bible and the flood in his own way. He reckoned that Noah only kept the animals that would be useful to humans.
Well,
he put his own interpretation on most things, it would seem.
He should have kept his own interpretation.
And actually,
he doesn't come across well.
Yeah, somebody's actually somebody's put a message on. They're watching on YouTube, and they said Escora is women's lingerie. What you need to type in is Ecosia, which is the new search engine, ECOSIA, Ecosia. And if you join that search engine, a donation is made to plant trees in third world countries. I'll be certainly leaving Google. But the thing is, I can't really leave Google because I'm being offered a free laptop to do reviews on my YouTube channel. So, yes, so I need to juggle things up. Anyway, so I need to find out at this stage if there's any questions, and it would be very good to find out if there are. So actually, you're not allowed to say anything now, Margaret, because everyone's had enough of listening to you.
Okay.
Do you know what? We love you lots, Margaret. Hey,
the Red Ochre thing, you know the Red Ochre thing?
Yeah, go
That's
for it.
Found in quite a lot of burials all over in Russia and all over the place. So it seemed to be quite a common thing at the time.
Yeah, it's usually applied to skin and so on, and we find that in relation to those types of burials. Yeah.
Right, that's a lot.
So that's your lock. Right, okay, Trini. We'll have a break.
No questions.
Okay.
No.
Right, Andy. How is this sounding? Am I being overbearing you? Well, how do you feel? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Come on, Andy. Come on, tell me.
No, you're not. And yes, I do agree with you. There's too many questionable things there. In defense of them, though, there's a couple of things. Red ochre comes from iron ore, so it is readily plentiful all over the place in all sorts of things. So, I mean, yeah, it couldn't. I don't know whether there are any cases of it. It could easily naturally run into a cave and do that. But the other thing is, with it being an eroded cave, like most of the caves from those periods, the whole front end has collapsed, and it's only the back ends that ever survive, and that was higher up, and that may have protected it. You can see from that outside picture that the sea washes over the front, the whole mouth of that cave. But and which is why there's nothing left there now. But that may be relatively new, as in the last few thousand years or whatever. But I'm thinking possibly that if the body was on its side, that's why you lost half of it. And the other half perhaps was still, because it showed it being quite higher up in that profile. Yeah, that one there showed it in being in that left-hand side of the cave, being that's where you would get a lot of the deposits. So it's possible that it could have been saved in that and gradually eroded away, because even the waves would be, the energy would be taken out of them when they got into that bit. So it would be a slow process, but yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, to be honest. But
actually, what you've done, Andy, you've tried to make it make sense.
Yeah.
And I do applaud you for trying to make it make sense. And actually, that's what I should be doing. I should try and make the evidence fit, but I just can't make the evidence fit.
It doesn't. That's the problem. It doesn't fit, even when you try that. There are possibilities. Nothing is beyond the realms of possibility. But when you start putting all these things together, it all starts to think, wait a minute, that's just not right. I mean, the carpals, metacarpals and things, and the phalanges, little bones could easily just get washed away and things, but there still should be other ones. There should be vertebrae, and there's none. But I don't know. I'm obviously going to go into this in detail afterwards, but the actual dig itself, how that was conducted, and how reliably or accurately recorded it was.
What is it that you're saying is fake? I mean,
right. Okay, we'll answer that in a minute. You can see the size of that skull, that thing on the left there, and the human remains. It's a big skull. What I'm saying is the placement of the archaeology is the fake, not the archaeology itself.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that totally. It's a shame they don't do some isotopic analysis of the bones or whatever. It's a shame there's no teeth. We could see kind of where it actually grown up. So
where are you thinking the bones came from then?
There's another cave that I do believe they were removed from and then replanted in that cave.
Oh, so you still think they're basically local? So.
Yes, no, they are local.
Interesting.
Why
move them to that one though?
Yeah, makes sense.
Property access.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
The other cave may have been down below the high water line.
Yeah.
And so they moved them out of the wet cave and put them in there, which at that time would have been dry.
Yeah, there's
you
different.
can see the high tide mark.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So this is right. Okay. I think need to be specific. The evidence has been gathered together and placed into that cave. That's what I believe to fit a certain narrative.
Yeah.
Now, if the evidence had been left in the original caves, then for us today in archaeology, they would be enlightening. And those phalanges, the metacarpals, and all the smaller bones, the smaller rib bones, the teeth, and all the rest of it might still be in the original cave where it came from.
Well, they might have been taken away by animals.
Yeah.
We did. Yeah, we did. Go on.
Sorry, I was going to say I'm more concerned about the erosion thing, because as far as I understand, looking at water levels here, that the water levels haven't substantially changed in about 3,000 years. I mean, you get a couple of feet either way, but not much, which would mean that that cave's been pounded by westerly gales for 3,000
Southwesterly
years.
gale. Yeah,
and they're coming straight.
Southwesterly.
Yeah, exactly, straight off the Atlantic. So that's not good.
But if
No,
the bones have been there for 34,000 years, it was 70 miles away from the coast for a good part of that time.
Yeah, but what we're talking about is, Andy's right. In the past few thousand years, there's not been a substantial difference. And in the past few hundred years, we're talking about anything that was in there would have been gone anyway. So that's what we're talking. But what I'm not going to do is say this is a definite. What I'm going to say is that the evidence just does not fit the bill.
It's certainly questionable. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I don't
know. Right. Okay then. What I would like now is, Jess, would you like to say anything, Jess?
No, you definitely have given me a new perspective in terms of all of this. Now you've said it doesn't sit right with me at all. And I think it's going to be one of those things that keep me up at night.
Oh, no, not another one.
It's because it's the first transsexual, isn't it? It's causing the problem.
Jessica, can you stop telling everybody that I keep you up at night? People are going to start talking. Do you know what I mean? They're already talking about me and Drina. That's why Idris did a runner. Pat, anything you would like to say? And David, because let's have a break.
No, fine. Interesting. Thank you.
Okay, David, anything? No. Okay, David's probably done a runner. He always does. Claire, do you want to say anything? Claire? Right, okay, Claire don't want to. Right, let's have a break.
Hang on a minute. I think David was trying to say something. David, you're muted.
David.
Oh, no, he's okay. He's saying he's fine. Sorry.
And basically, in the chat box, there's some other stuff. Right, here we go. This is from Claire. Whole story just doesn't add up. Too many discrepancies. Too Arthurian. You could be right, Claire. Well, the thing is, what I just keep repeating this. Lots of forgeries in history actually use actual evidence. Except the Piltdown Man forgery was a bit too far out. But the point is, you can't have a real forgery without some decent stuff. And this has got quality material. And it just seems to fit whatever narrative that Buckland wanted to fit. And we will repeat. Buckland was famous, if not notorious, for his peculiar humor, the distracting and cathartic qualities of which, it will be argued, served as strategy in the advancement of unorthodox ideas or for glossing over inconsistencies. On that note, 10-minute break, folks. Boys, girls, hermaphrodites. Yes, and we won't be long. We'll try not to be long. Thank you very much. We'll be back.
Oh, I don't know.
Hang on, shut up. I'm not really interested in what you've got to say, Margaret, because Claire says the following. Claire has the end of this in the break. She says, completely agree, it's a fake. It sounds like a staged Victorian story. Too many discrepancies, don't add up. The more you dive deeper into it, the painting looks like an Arthurian legend.
I don't get it at all.
Well, you're not meant to get it. That's why you're one of my students.
I just don't understand why they would move it from one place to another. Is it all to do with ownership of the cave? Is that what it is?
Yes. If you go into the Dilwyn diaries, right, which we're going to do. The Dilwyn diaries is a good half an hour, so we've got to have this break now. I'll be back.
Okay.
I'll be back. And anyone watching on YouTube, we're not going to be long, so deal with the crackle. There's usually some nonsense in the background. Pete talking about birds in his garden and strange things. Go on, Pete, give us a lecture.
It's funny. If you look at the cameras now, it's just a lot of empty rooms. Apart from you, Claire, sorry.
And Prince Andrew's made a settlement with
Yes. No.
well, yeah, it's got to be done. I tell you what, Andy, right? If I say that you and I have had a sordid relationship, right, will you settle?
What, settle with Prince Andrew? You've got to have some money, mate. That's the problem. Yeah, you've got to find someone with money.
I'd settle for a Land Rover, Andy, if that's okay.
I haven't even got one of them now.
Oh, right, okay, then. Why didn't, if you nick Claire's, well, no, I'm just going to get a cup of tea.
You don't want that. Yours is better than Claire's.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is in the right state.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I went in it once. That was enough. I'll be back. I'll be back.
Margaret, does Alice Roberts think it's real?
Well, she just quotes, yeah, I presume she does.
Or she might just be avoiding it by quoting everybody else, of course. But
Yeah, she's just kind of writing about all the different digs that have taken place over many years by various people. She doesn't seem to think a great deal of William Buckland.
no.
Doesn't that answer our question in the first place? How can she, hang on a minute, you've just said it. How can she think that this is real when she's questioning Buckland in the first place? I tell you what, Margaret, right?
She's never mentioned that it's a fake though, and it came from a different cave.
What we're going to do, Margaret, right? I've just been prosecuted for killing 20 people in a Chinese restaurant, right? So will you come along to the Chinese restaurant and have my food and highly recommend it? This is what we're talking about.
Mm.
But by the way, there's puffer fish on the menu, Margaret. It's wonderful.
Ooh.
It's stuffed puffer fish, right?
Oh,
it's beautiful.
Joking. You are joking.
Yeah, no.
You are joking.
You're certain to live after it. Fingers crossed. And it was only proven that I was guilty, not that I was definitely guilty. Don't go there, please. Right, okay. I'm looking forward to doing the Dilwyn Diaries, even if we didn't do any more tonight. It's just like, yeah, that's I love
What is this diary? Is this somebody that knew William Buckland?
Oh no, they were best mates. Well, actually, Dilwyn doesn't paint this completely the way that Buckland would want it to be painted. But what we haven't done is we haven't mentioned what Craig Roberts says about this, and then we haven't mentioned the bone caves. We've got some other images to look at as well. And yeah.
It's a difficult period to deal with antiquarians, isn't it? Because some were very diligent and very good at recording stuff, and others weren't and made it up. And others went even further and forged stuff to make it even better. And you don't know who any of them were and how reliable they were, you know. If you look back at William Buckland's other stuff, it's not great. So,
no, exactly. Tea's coming.
And like you said, if he manages to lose a mammoth skull off his desk, or in fairness, it was probably stolen from his desk, but
yeah.
Maybe it was a bit careless.
It's what?
Maybe it was a bit careless.
Yeah, just ever so slightly. Misplaced it.
Maybe it fell off the desk and sort of hid behind some boxes or something.
Who reported it as being misplaced? Was that him, or was that somebody else reporting it on his behalf, trying to
No, I think
slander him?
No, he did. I'm
Yeah.
sure it was him. I can't find the exact quote, but it definitely disappeared in his office.
But he might have said that because he didn't want to be liable for it. University. Oh, it was there last night. I actually lent it to the Antiquarian Society and they've lost it. I don't want to let out that I took it out the building. Yeah. I know I wasn't supposed to take it out the building. So I'm not admitting to anything.
Oh, he reckoned that she might have been a witch because they found the scapula of a sheep in the blade bone of mutton gives grounds for conjecture, which favours the theory that she was a dealer in witchcraft.
Oh, she might have been.
It makes it sound like an illegal thing, isn't it? A dealer in witchcraft.
Defamation of character.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then she was a prostitute.
Oh, God.
She was organising a casino.
Jess, don't you do that in Atlantic Major class?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Every Thursday morning.
The thing is, right, Jess, you know the money that we actually pay you. Why is it you have sort of sequin dresses and diamonds and tiaras? Where does that money come from?
Well, there's a will, there's a way, Carl.
Admirers.
Oh my! Oh yeah, Jess. Jess, have you got a way?
Andrew, somebody or other.
All I ever got in Bridgend was a parking fine.
Oh yeah. Oh no, you don't.
Right.
Oh God. Oh. Do you know? I'm starting a new archaeology class in just down by me, and it's like I went in the pub and the guy started talking to me. It was great. And on the way out, there was this guy who said, "Oh, I heard of this archaeology class. I really, really want to take part." And apparently, the people that we've got interested, they said that you can have the room free, right? We'll keep the bar open for as long as your people drink in here after the class. So yeah. So Jess, do you want to swap classes? That you can, and I'll do. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Right. Anyway, so we're gonna get started now, and somebody sent me a message and says, "Why do you think it's a forgery?" And I'm saying, "Well, just come in, watch."
Yeah.
Oh. Do you know?
It's not a forgery, is it? It's a fake site.
Yeah. The bones themselves have been dated.
Yeah.
Yes.
By eminent people.
I'm not saying for 1 minute any of the evidence is bogus. I'm just saying that the evidence does not fit the bill.
No.
But basically, it's almost as if somebody's scooped a load of stuff from somewhere and dumped it in the cave.
What direction does the cave point? Do you know? As in compass direction.
Oh, hang on a minute.
About due south, I would think.
Well, I was going to say, if it's south facing, it gives it a bit of credibility. If it's not, then it makes it even more questionable.
If it's on the end of the
on the Gower,
the Gower, yes, it probably
is south, isn't it? Well, you did say southwesterly. Gales go
it is
straight
southwest.
into it. Yeah, that's about right though. Yeah, that's okay.
Right. If we look at there's a map coming up now. It is southwest facing.
Yeah, that's good. It should be, because we've only got the end of the cave now, so it's possible that the mouth might have been even completely south.
Yeah.
Because all the habitable ones I've ever come across from the ancient times are all south facing. So.
Yeah. That's basically more south than west, actually.
Yeah. That's right.
Right.
Nice beach of Port Island there.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, the nice pub as well, Pete.
Yeah. Oh yes.
We don't talk about that. There's Cornwall there. Shall I tell them about what that, sort of not to implicate where I am, right? Because I might upset a few people. But I passed this woman the other day who actually bought a copy of my book, right? And she was wandering up the lane. I started chatting, and she says, "Oh, I can't stand English people," she's saying. And I'm thinking, hang on, you've got an English accent. So before I said that you were English, and she would have decked me no sooner as I looked at her, she said, "I'm from Cornwall, I am." And I thought, right, I know where we're going. I know why you hate English people. She said, "I've moved in around here, right? And all my neighbours are English. I moved out of Cornwall to get away from English people." And I'm thinking, how am I hearing this in Wales? Do you know what I mean?
But down in Solva and Pembroke, they do talk with a West Country accent.
They were talking on the radio today, on Radio 4, about the linguistics of, there's no really easy way of saying it, of kind of Black American English. And they were relating some of it to Cornish English, not Cornish, but Cornish English and West Country English, phrases and that going into it, as in, 200-year-old ones, 300-year-old ones, which I thought was a really interesting mix, along with their own kind of West African roots with it.
I remember meeting Pat for the first time and thinking she was Irish. I think the American and Irish accents are very similar.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's what they were talking about, the linguistic roots and how the language changes and how it's not gangland rap. There is an established language behind it that is slightly different to other English languages.
My God, right, let's crack on.
Well, the Americans do speak a strange English anyway, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does sound.
Hang on a minute, what is this? Have a go at Pat afternoon? Right, okay, right.
Sorry,
okay.
Pat.
That's all right.
Do you know the best thing to do with an American? The best thing to do with somebody from North America, if you all say they're from Canada, right?
Ooh.
And when you come across an actual Canadian, they worship your feet.
I know.
Because if you say to a Canadian that you're from the United States, yeah, that's it. End of the world. Right, so I want to read this now. The Red Lady of Paviland background. Now, this is from a chap by the name of Craig Roberts. He goes to say the Red Lady of Pavland is an ancient human skeleton, agreed. Discovered in 1823 by Reverend William Buckland. Not so.
Oh.
In one of the Pavland limestone caves of the Gower Peninsula in South Wales, correct. The Red Lady, incorrect, is so named because the very bones of this skeleton are completely coloured in a deep red. Not all of them are covered deep red. So this next point is really interesting, which I have actually missed up until now. In his book, Reliquiae Diluveni, which means evidence of the flood, was written in 1823. The same year, Buckland made the discovery. Now, I sit down and I worked this out and I said, do you realise how difficult it is to write a book? And you've made this discovery and you've written a book the same year and put the discovery into it. Interesting. Evidence of the flood. You don't need me to go anywhere with that. If you're thinking what I'm thinking. And it goes on to say, whether we come in the Reliquiae Diluveni, it goes, I found the skeleton enveloped by a coating of kind of ruddle, which is ochre or red sandstone, which stained the earth. Red sandstone is basically full of sesqui oxides, which is basically iron oxides. That's what we're trying to say anyway, earlier on in that discussion about ironstone. And in some parts extended itself to the distance of about half an inch around the surface of the bones. That's quite a lot. And that's a lot of material. They must have had bucket loads of this. Close to that part of the thigh bone, where the pocket is usually worn, surrounded also by ruddle, were about 2 handfuls of Nerita littoralis, which is basically periwinkle shells. As at another part of the skeleton, in contact with the ribs, were 40 or 50 fragments of ivory rods. How can you say 40 or 50, for God's sake? It's a big difference. Sorry. Also, some small fragments of rings made of the same ivory and found with the rods. With rods and rings, as well as nerite shells, were stained superficially with red and lay in the same red substance that enveloped the bones. Now, the one thing is, right, if this red oxide, yeah, that's what it is. This ochre, ruddle, or whatever you want to call it, has superficially stained the other artifacts. How is it completely stained and impregnated the bones if the bones weren't already displayed without flesh on them in the first place? So do you see what I'm saying? That bit of the evidence doesn't hang true. Because if this stuff is sitting in the red ochre, it would be stained more than the bones themselves. So, you know, again, this is where we're going. Now, before we do Dilwyn, as a creationist, Reverend Buckland, back to this source that we got in front of us, believed no human remains could have been older than the great biblical flood. Vis-a-vis, we said that. And thus, unfortunately, he underestimated the skeleton's true age. Buckland believed the remains to date back to the Roman era. The Reverend also believed the skeleton to be female, due in large part to the numerous decorative items: Margaret, the perforated seashell necklaces, ivory wands, statue of Lloyd George, jewelry described above. These items, combined with the skeleton's red coloration, caused Buckland to further speculate that the remains may have belonged to a Roman prostitute, of which, with every prostitute I've ever met socially, I've never seen a single one painted red. The good Reverend Buckland, I don't know if Pete's ever seen a red painted prostitute.
Well, they had pink cheeks and...
Yeah, well, let's leave their bum cheeks away. Anyway, the good Reverend Buckland was, however, slightly misled by his beliefs and findings. The red lady has in fact now been identified as a red man. No, a man probably no older than 21 years when he died. And his are in fact the oldest anatomical modern human remains found in the United Kingdom. It's funny that, isn't it? His burial is also the oldest known ceremonial burial in Western Europe. Funny that, isn't it? And when we've got evidence of caves where, like Lascaux and Altamira, we got wonderful cave art and footprints and everything and the mud in them and all the rest of it. Anyway, which would be perfect conditions to find human remains, to be honest with you. Scholars now believe he may have been a tribal chieftain. Well, obviously, because he's in a cave. And it goes on to say about the dating here, which we've already said. Now, here we go. Although now on the coast, we're going to be repeating this again, so we don't need to do that. And the rest of this is actually nicked from, oh God, the rest of this has been stolen from Wikipedia. So this is the point. It's repeating, it's re-repeating what we, actually that bit was good. And then it went on to the Wikipedia entry. So that's the thing, it's repeating, there's somebody there, and then he goes under Wikipedia and he which is a problem. So what I want to do is I want to do Dilwyn, and what we need to do, we're again looking into the cave. Again, it's all higgledy-piggledy, it's all jagged, and when okay, right, here's another thing. I know this Carboniferous rock because the coastline of South Wales is dominated by it. You've got Barry Island, which is partly Carboniferous Limestone. You've got another place called Cold Nap, which is Carboniferous Limestone, other bits, and also a little known island called Steepholm and one called Flatholm, if anyone knows it. and also Denny Island, they're all Carboniferous limestone. And what you see with Carboniferous limestone is that all these jagged bits, and when you get water into them, it carves and rips everything out of them. And again, this is what I'm seeing with this image. So
that's a natural thermal fault.
I like the word natural thermal fault. Oh, that's a really nice one. So here we go. What we're going to do. There's Reverend Buckland. There he is. Ideal man for Claire. She could do worse. There he is again. Oh, there's that's oh god, not a hyena skull, saber-toothed tiger skull. Right now, a skull 4 times the size of that was on his desk and it disappeared. Look at the stuff on his desk. It's huge. And there he is again. There's good old William Buckland. He's a nice old sausage. And here's some more of the artifacts. The mammoth ivory, that thing on the left, used as like a necklace thing. You've got all these. These are actually. Hang on a minute. The description's wrong. They're not even flint. They're chert. That's chert. That's not blooming flint. Everyone says it's flint. I can clearly see that's chert. Sorry, I'm getting agitated. So
the big white thing, like a great big egg, they reckon that came out of the mammoth tusk.
And that was probably used as a pendulum.
Oh.
Got a hole in it, yeah.
But yeah, actually, Pete, it may have been. Right? But
well, you see the hole at the top where it was strung.
Yeah.
Those are not flint, they're chert. They're chert artifacts, and everyone's saying they're flint. Even that's wrong. Anyway, so more of these bits and pieces. Those are periwinkles.
How could they eat them if they didn't have a pin?
Grow their fingernails really long and pointy.
Yeah, well, you'd know all about that, you witch, Margaret. Anyway, periwinkles. 2 handfuls of these, and also there you go. There's that's not blooming. But anyway,
that looks built.
That's not Pavlan Cave, right? But that is built, yeah. But what you can see, how the hell is this made it into my list? That's built. But what you can obviously see is the choppy seas out there, and it would just need a big swell like this into something like this, which is built to wash everything out. How embarrassing is that? Why have I got that one up there? Hang on.
Excellent mackerel fishing point. It's called loads of mackerel there.
And this is the cave now.
Oh,
and can you see that it's just it's finding all those artifacts in something as narrow and condensed as this just doesn't make sense.
Look at the shape of the mythology there, of the geology. It was formed at a time of extreme heat, by the look of it. The curving way that it was curved, when the actual Earth crust actually moved and made these curves in the.
Yeah, that's more right, because this is sedimentary rock rather than metamorphic igneous.
Yep.
So right. What we need to do, we need to go back to the beginning. Oh, these are some more of the other artifacts that we have. Where's that? Where's it gone? Where did it go? I just had an image. It went. Oh, sod it. Now I'm there.
So you can see the tide mark there.
Yeah.
You can.
Where the lichen ends.
Yeah, exactly. There it is. It's just basically at the foot of the mouth of the cave.
Yep.
So this is key to what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Oh, and also, right, those that know about caves, right? Let me give you a little bit more of a fact. If we go back to there, where is the blooming thing? That image there. Right. Okay. Do you see that hole at the top is called a blowhole?
Mm-hmm.
A blowhole is formed when you get condensed waves in a pocket like this, and eventually the water finds its way through the rock. That's called a blowhole. And there's descriptions that you can either go down the blowhole or you can go in the mouth of the cave when the tide's not in. Well, that's the point. You can't get into the cave when the tide's in. You've got to have the tide out to go into the cave, right? So what we're going to do now, I've got to give you Dilwyn's account. Otherwise, we're never going to get this done today, right? So we're going to chill out. And here we go, Dilwyn's diaries. There's 8 pages of them, but I'm not doing it all. Right. The Dilwyn diaries. Dilwyn, these diaries were completed between 1817 and 1852. And they look at a prominent man such as William Buckland. Between October the 13th, 1817 and July the 12th, 1852, Lewis Weston Dilwyn of Swansea kept a detailed diary of his life. Listen to these words. A wealthy landowner, a naturalist with an interest in geology, Dilwyn was in contact with other prominent men, such as William Buckland of Oxford. In particular, entries in his diary give greater details and accurate dates of the first examination of Pavlan Cave and correctly identify other people that were involved, including Mary Teresa Talbot of Penrhys. No, Penrhys, actually. Penrhys is in the Rhondda Valley. Penrhys. So anyway, what we know about Lewis Weston Dilwyn, he was born in 1778. So by the time he comes across Buckland, by the time we talk about the instances in here, he's in his 30s anyway. So he's of a sensible. No, he's in his 40s, isn't he? Sorry, I completely lost that. And here we go. This is a substantial document that we've got. A sister of Dilwyn married a man from Ipswich, but no other link with the town is known of. And basically, a little bit more of this. Dilwyn kept a corrected calendar, entries in his diary, and he gives his date of birth of Ipswich. That's where we got the Ipswich bit with a sister of Dilwyn. Anyway, so Dilwyn became a botanist and a natural historian. He was a member of the British Mineralogical Society, a forerunner of the Geological Society. After the purchase by his father of the Cambrian pottery, Dilwyn moved to Swansea in 1803. So we're 20 years before Buckland. In 1817, he left the pottery in favour of public life, becoming a high magistrate in Swansea in 1818. So he's quite high up. And his biographical details to be found in various national dictionaries. Dilwyn married a certain Mary Llewellyn in 1807. They had a son that could obtain the future wealth and inheritance from Dilwyn. And it sort of goes on to say that we've got a prominent association. And here we go, Dilwyn's relationships with other prominent men of the time, the early production of cave photographs by Dilwyn's son, and Swansea's association with the inventor of photography, a certain Henry Fox. Margaret, tell us the surname.
Buckland.
Talbot!
Oh, sorry.
A branch of the Talbot family lived at Penrhys Castle on Gower, where Dilwyn often stayed. Now, what we need to do, I need to show you where Penrhys Castle is. Otherwise, we're never going to get anywhere. Right. So if you follow that little bit of a road there, and you go a bit further on, down the kink in the road, a little bit, so you go up there, go across towards the right, and where you got another kink, Penrhys is just above there, right? So you know where we are. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we'll keep this map on there for a minute anyway. So Dilwyn often stayed there, so he was very near Pavlan Cave. Dilwyn lived outside Swansea in a place called Penllygare, at a mansion set in its own grounds, although the building is now gone, like many mansions. From here, Dilwyn could visit Swansea and his friends on the Gower with ease, normally on foot or using a horse-drawn carriage. He knew most of the local dignitaries as a magistrate, mayor of the town and first president of the Royal Institution of South Wales, which is based at Swansea. Dilwyn's father lived in London, causing many visits either by boat to Bristol before continuing by mail coach. So he would often stop at Oxford on his way to London. So there's a link. Here, his mother-in-law lived and his son John was at university from 1828. This situation aided his relationships with other geologists and natural historians of the time, such as, go on, Margaret.
Go on, no, go on, you.
Oh, Buckland. Oh, I forget it. With you obviously not read that book very much. With whom? Shut up.
There's a lot to it.
With whom he spent a great deal of time. The men had much in common because they would visit the same area of the landscape. Between October the 13th, 1817 and July the 12th, 1852, Dilwyn kept this wonderful diary that went into 36 volumes, which we're not going to do today. And he was linked to lots of other famous people, which we won't go into. But however, although of general interest and of interest to us today, we do look at Buckland. Now, William Buckland, the Reverend William Buckland, professor of geology at Oxford, is well known for his speleological eccentricity. Oh God! Basically, he was a caver. I couldn't even get that out then. His work is adequately covered elsewhere. So we know we've looked at Buckland. We know he was a speleologist. I can say it now. Dilwyn's first brief reference to Buckland occurred in London on November the 27th, 1819. But they dined together. Buckland was well known to those at Penrice on the Gower and often corresponded with one of the sisters. So Buckland had a direct link with the sisters on the Gower. This was interspersed with visits, for example. So he obviously had an interest in one of the sisters. He would basically, en route to Swansea via Cardiff, oh God, well, never mind. So in other words, you go all the way down to the Gower, passing Swansea to get back up again. Anyway, there you can work that one out. While staying at Oxford, Dilwyn often attended Buckland's lectures and was inspired. And there was a prehistoric site that Buckland explored at Kirkdale, the Kirby Cave. And basically lots of specimens were collected. And interestingly enough, Dilwyn accidentally bumped into Buckland on a trip returning from Bohemia. So Bohemia being the old up part of the old Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Oh.
So in other words, yeah, they kept on bumping into each other. It must have been such a small world. I got to be honest with you. Having returned to Swansea, Dilwyn became involved with some of the first examinations of Pavlan Cave. This sounds a bit like Professor Donald whatever in Carry On Behind that Kenneth Williams paid. So anyway, so basically then it was known Goat Hole Cave, Pavlan Cave. This cave became exceptionally archaeologically important. The first inspection was made in 1822 by the Reverend John Davis and his brother, who had actually inspected the cave. Both men were probably known to Dilwyn at this time. It's a small world. So in other words, it was before the Talbots, my wonderful friend Margaret.
Yeah,
it was
about them.
Well, you could have told us. It was a Reverend John Davis and his brother first visited the cave in 1822.
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks for, yeah, I really appreciate you. That's really good of you. Love that. Reverend Davis often dined at Gower. So obviously with Dilwyn on his estate. However, it was not Dilwyn, but the more local Talbot family that was first informed of the find by the Davises. So the Davises first went to the Talbots. They didn't go to Buckland or Dilwyn. When the curate brought 2 Roman coins from the cave to be deposited in the museum at Penrice Castle. Daniel Davis also found a coin of Emperor Carausius. And why is that important to me? Because the Emperor Carausius is the old British usurper emperor. Buckland was then made aware of the discoveries of these Roman coins, which obviously, why would Buckland be interested? At the time of Paviland's examination by Davis, Dilwyn was entertaining the inventor of the safety lamp, Humphrey Davy. You can't make this up. The Davy lamp, there you go. And what's that?
Humphrey Davy was from Penzance.
Dilwyn, well, okay. So Humphrey Davy, inventor of the safety lamp, had visited Penlygea. Another friend of both the Dilwyns and Talbots was also present. A very famous person known as Reverend John Montgomery Trahan. He was also an amateur geologist. On the 26th of December, Dilwyn, Trahan and Davy went by carriage to stay at Penrice for a few days. Now, this is key. This is key. The following day, the 27th of December, 1822, Dilwyn and Trahan went to Paviland to inspect the cave. They took with them the eldest of the Talbot sisters, Mary Teresa Talbot, who died in 1861. She was born in 1795, so she was at that stage, she would have been 27. She was the daughter of Lady Mary Cole, now married to Christopher Cole, MP, from her first marriage to Christopher Mansell Rice Talbot. The Mansell and the Rice Talbot, that's associated with Margam House. Mary Teresa was normally referred to by Dilwyn and others as Miss Talbot, following the old convention of using a title only for the eldest unmarried daughter. This usage is borne out by Dilwyn's diaries, where Mary Teresa is not mentioned by name, but the other daughters such as Jane or Charlotte, although some confusion is created by the number of people named Mary. Anyway, let's move on. So what we got to do, the identification of Miss Talbot as being either of the 2 girls is therefore incorrect. So is one of the girls. It was the eldest daughter. So here we go. Dilwyn's diary entries for 1822 include the following references to Pavlan Cave. Friday the 27th of December, John Trahan, Miss Talbot, the eldest daughter, that's the unmarried one, isn't it? The eldest unmarried daughter, yeah. Miss Talbot and I spent most of the day at a cavern, which is our Paviland, which has been discovered on the coast about 6 miles west of Penrice, and we there found bones and bones of elephants. So there you go, bones of elephants. None of this has survived. Saturday, the 27th of December, Miss Talbot and I went again to the cavern and brought away a great quantity of bones. Where did they go? So Davy Lamp, and Joe Trahan left us, and in the afternoon, I returned home. Yeah, so in other words, he was left with Miss Talbot. I hope they took a blanket. The bones removed from the cave were retained in the family museum at Penrice. This account differs slightly from a later one by Dilwyn, normally used as the basis of dating the visits. Being part of his day-to-day diary, it can be taken as the more accurate. And it's said that they may have visited on the 23rd of December. And it only mentioned Miss Talbot. So in other words, in another entry, so the first entry that we've got is the 27th, but he must have visited the cave alone with Miss Talbot, unaccompanied on the 23rd of December. So what was the nature of the visit to the cave? Yes. Pavlan being an obviously important discovery, Buckland was informed of the find by Lady Mary. He immediately responded with a letter to Buckland. and basically he's basically saying that about Miss Talbot, in which he asked for his thanks for the information to be conveyed to her mother. It gets a bit confusing a minute. His letter showed the great attention to detail that Buckland required, and indicates the interest that Mary Teresa, the eldest daughter again, must have herself had for the subject. It also implied that Buckland knew of the cavern before Mary Teresa's own examination on the 27th. In his letter, he pleaded as his excuse a prior engravement and added. So there's some shenanigans going on. It says as follows: I am indeed sorry not to have assisted at the opening of your very interesting new cave at Paviland, the circumstances of which must form another feature in my work, and of which I hope to receive from you and Mr. Dilwyn a full detailed account. Meanwhile, pray have the mouth closed up again to prevent destruction. Oh. Did you just see what that said there? In a letter, he pleaded as an excuse to a prior engagement. Meanwhile, pray have the mouth closed up again to prevent destruction. From what? What's causing the destruction? Why would it be destroyed? Do you see where we're going with this? There's an indication here. Does that say that the evidence in the cave was going to be destroyed by a storm? Why was it going to be destroyed by a storm at that stage? Obviously, Buckland did not comprehend the size of the entrance, which was far too huge to permit any such closure, and which had always been open to the elements. Buckland actually arrived in the, so he was trying to take the credit for this, which it wasn't his find. It was, it was our
David.
It was our lady friend. Yeah, exactly. It was the lady friend. Buckland actually arrived in the company of John Trahan just after breakfast, not Dilwyn, on the 18th of January 1823, earlier than Dilwyn expected. The man was engaged together geologically nearly all day, probably examining some of the specimens in Dilwyn's own collection. The next day, Sunday the 19th, Mr. Buckland, Trahan and I walked to Llangavalach Church in the morning, and Mary, Dilwyn's wife, went in the carriage. Soon after, Buckland and Trahan went to Penrice, and I was prevented from accompanying them by more business. So, you know, this is such an amazing find that, you know, it's not really working out that way. So Dilwyn occupied the next day in Swansea, from where he went to Penrice with his wife and John, his son arriving soon after 4. For the next 2 days, Buckland and Dilwyn were involved with further examinations of the cave. And here we go. Tuesday the 21st, went with Miss Talbot and Trahan to meet Buckland, who had gone early at Goat Cave near Paviland. And from hence, we went together to look at Hound's Hole and Deborah Cave. We all got back to dine at Where are these other caves come from? Hound's Hole and Deborah Cave. Where's all this in the story? What's in those caves? I want to know more. Wednesday the 22nd, Miss Talbot and Miss Grant. Huh? Who the hell is she? And Joe Trahan and I on foot to the head of the Great Tor, where Buckland found his way to examine a cavern without any success. Hence, we went to Penard Castle, and there Buckland and Trahan proceeded in their way homeward. And the remainder of us returned to Penrice. The frost continues unusually severe. So the one point I'm looking at here, the work in the cave must have been so rapid. You know, it was so massively rapid. Dilwyn gives an account. Now, this is what Andy was wanting. Dilwyn gives an account. Now, this is really important, right? If you can understand some stuff about the women and stuff above, then go for it, right? It's very confusing, right? But this is from Dilwyn's account. Dilwyn writes in 1840 of the events of 1823. he says, now he's writing, why is he writing this later? Why didn't he write this there and then? Mixed up in the rubbish on the floor with the remains of various, and mixed up on the, so hang on a minute, it was all mixed up on the floor, right? Shouldn't have been in layers. And the other thing as well is that if they're digging all this stuff out in the cave, it can't have been that compacted together. Mixed up in the rubbish on the floor with the remains of various animals, we found numerous small chips and other large pieces of flint, which were rudely knapped, as if these caves had once been places of concealment for the manufacture of Celtic arrows, see? Celtic, nonsense, heads and spears. From the discovery of Roman coins and other similar artifacts produced in both the caves, what? It may perhaps, hang on, both the caves, I thought there was only one. It may perhaps also be inferred that they were only the recesses of one much larger cavern when these manual operations are carried on. So in other words, everything's mixed up. There's any, I've been involved in archaeological excavation work a hell of a long time, and you don't excavate this type of stuff in 4 days. Even if you've got X number of navvies and you want to get all this out, it's a lot of work. Right, more Roman coins have been found there later. Dilwyn's account of the 21st Buckland would have been taken to Pavlan by either Trahan or the Talbots on the 20th. Without this visit, he would not have been able to leave before the others and meet them there. Huh? And so an accurate date can be deduced from his initial examination. The 2 days he spent in the cave were used as the basis for the entry in his Reliquae Dilwyn, which was just being completed. So in other words, he spent 2 days digging in the cave. He got all the information he needed and he chucked it in his new book. How appropriate is that? Now, what I'm going to say now is might upset one or two of you, but it certainly upsets me. Here we go. This is some of Buckland's undertakings, which is very similar to the undertakings of a certain faker of the Paviland, not the Paviland, Piltdown Man forgery. Yeah, certain Charles. Despite his obvious interest in the subject of geology and archaeology, lost there a minute, Dilwyn did not follow further in Buckland's footsteps, although he did record other visits to caves and meetings with his friend. The sea caves at Tresillian near Trahan's home were visited on the 10th of September 1825. Those at Dunraven, Vale of Glamorgan, later photographed by his son John Dilwyn Llewellyn, were examined with Trahan on the 12th. Okay.
Who's Lewis Dilwyn? Swansea.
No, John Dilwyn Llewellyn. Did I say Lewis?
No, but in this book, the Swansea pottery magnate Lewis Dilwyn.
Oh, that's associated. That's to do with that's actually to do with Dilwyn, because he worked for them in 1817.
He dug up the tusks that the Davises had left and carted off several baskets of bones and teeth back to Penrice Castle.
Can you see the illogical nature of this?
Mm.
Buckland is next encountered at Oxford in November 1825 when Dilwyn is returning from home. On the 26th, he helped Buckland perform a rather strange experiment when he buried 24 toads enclosed in different types of stone to see how long they would survive. Further visits to Oxford were made in June 1827 when his son John failed his examinations, and again in December 1827 when his entry to the college was secured. Over the next few years, particularly whilst John was at Oxford, there were many meetings between Dilwyn and Buckland, all being of a social nature. When they dug up the toads, they were all dead. It was June 1831 before Buckland again visited Penlagaya, the home of Dilwyn, although expected on the 29th. He did not arrive until the 30th. Then they visited Bacon and Minchin Hole caves, which is basically those caves that we're going to be visiting in the future. Dilwyn had an injured knee, had to be treated with leeches. Buckland's examination of the 2 sea caves was therefore conducted alone. This inspection was much earlier than the first major excavations in 1850 and 1851. The next year, Buckland was again at Pavlan. Right, hang on a minute. I've lost my notes a minute. Hang on. Here we go. Right, hang on a minute. He was at Pavlan on July the 19th. So anyway, we've got these. And interesting enough, at Caswell Cave, you've got something known as Hyena's Den, which was examined in 1832. So all of this goes on to say that there's some more fanciful stuff between Dilwyn and Buckland, and there are further entries in the diary about the 2 of them, but nothing more substantial about these about Pavlan Cave. But what I will say is when you look at all those little bits that I've given you about bones taken away from the cave, other localities being examined, an excavation over 2 days in the cave, how possibly can you have gleaned anything of scientific worth in 2 days? Do you know what? Andy will verify me on this. Claire can spend years in her family's cave, right, and only find 1 or 2 teeth that are of any age at all, whilst scrubbing around with modern day equipment. Well, you know, this is just so far-fetched, the whole thing. What I'm going to say before we open the mics up now, I wanted to mention that in the Gower, we mentioned Mitchin Cave, we've mentioned Cathole Cave, we mentioned Tuthole Cave, we've mentioned Hyena Cave. We'll be looking at all those in the future. There's well over a dozen caves on the Gower that I'd like to look at for flora and fauna evidence. So we're going to be doing that out of context. We'll just look at all the caves and all the information in them to try and link this in with what's going on at Pavlan Cave. And you might find amongst all those caves that we look at, which could be the candidate for where some of this data came from, because one of the caves in particular has a similar date to the radiocarbon dating of the bones that we see from the Pavlan Cave in the first place. So, okay, we'll just have a quick look at some images now, and we'll just, so obviously we've got an idea of the missing mammoth skull that went missing from Buckland's desk. Lots of these artifacts we're referred to as flint, but they're clearly chert. We've got a bit of, that's actually a replica that one of the mammoth sort of pendants, or as Pete would say, for his little exploits. We've obviously looked at the periwinkle shells, and obviously there's periwinkles themselves. Looking out at that, you can see that there is the inspiration for, if we go back to there, that's the inspiration for that. So the reconstruction is 100% wrong. So when people like that piece of art there would have taken more than a couple of hours to produce, but the artist is being guided with flawed information to create that in the first place. And the other thing as well is, and nobody has spotted this, but you've spotted this in a different way. The bones that we see are in a really good state of preservation, right? And if this body was laying flat, those bones themselves are not disarticulated, right? They're laying in a very, very good state of preservation, right? If this was lying so close to the surface, all the bones would have been gnawed at and destroyed, not just the ones that ain't there. And this looks very, you know, I'm sorry, I've done my bit tonight. So what I'm going to do now, it would be good to open up the mic. And again, last look at this illustration. There we go. And the other thing as well is, why do they need to access the cave up a ladder when they've accessed it at low water mark from the sea? Does that indicate that the water level may have been a bit higher back then? So we're going to call that a day now. I've thrown enough at you. I've lectured you all enough. You've put up with me today, and so I'll just like to say. So we'll stop that. I'd just like to tell you what we're doing next week, which will be a lot easier next week, and I won't be picking on Margaret. I'll be picking on Miss Poole instead. Mrs. Poole or Mrs. Lake.
Mrs. P.
Mrs. P. Mrs. P. Right. So next week we're going to be looking at the very early evidence from Craswell Crags in Derbyshire. And Pete, make sure Sandra's here next week.
If she's well enough, I'll pick her up and bring her here.
Yeah. No, Craswell Crags has got a certain meaning to her. It's to do with a friend Rogan. That's why I wanted to be here next week.
Okay.
To be honest with you, I don't care if we don't see Sandra for a couple more months for her to be well, right? I want to see her next week.
Okay.
Okay. Right.
So tell her you're doing Craswell Crags.
Yeah, that's right. Pete, anything you'd like to say while I got you on the phone? I'll got you on the line.
No, it's all good.
Right. Okay. We've lost Claire. Claire went a bit earlier on. Margaret, I know you've been gobby tonight as usual. I tell you what, Margaret's really found her feet these days. So basically, what we've got Claire goes on to say again. She says, "Completely agree. It's a fake. It sounds like it's staged Victorian story." She said, "Job for Sherlock Holmes," she says, but obviously she's left us tonight, so I don't know where she's gone. Poor old Claire.
Well,
She's probably working in Asda's.
Well, somebody's got to work there, haven't they? Talking about Margaret, what about you, Lev?
Well, this Buckland chap implies that previous operations had removed other parts of the skeleton.
Oh, that's a nice one.
That's what it says here. All these bones appeared not to have been disturbed by the previous operations that had removed the other parts of the skeleton.
Well, where are they then?
Well, presumably those brothers Davis took them.
They went to. Didn't they go to Penrice Museum in the castle? Well, where's that then? The castle's still there.
No, he doesn't name names.
Tell you what, they're still in the attic.
Operations, whoever
What
they
we're
were.
going to do, we're going to go to the attic. And do you know what? Oh, that's right. Can you remember that? Carry on behind. It was Professor Donald Crump, right? And actually, he used the word operations in the Carry On film quite a lot, right? And he also referred to his diggings, and he also had a big mammoth thing that fell off his desk in the film and shattered on the floor. I reckon it was based on this story.
But Buckland's successor in 1911 went back to have another dig, and he found over 400 artifacts.
Yeah, probably put back there.
It sounds like everybody and his mother have been there. Even a group of schoolboys went and found loads of stuff. Oh,
that's quite convenient, isn't it? do you know there was one thing suggested, right? There was one thing suggested. I don't know if you've come across this, that the blowhole, which is created by intense pressure from the sea, needing the vacuum of air to be released. They said that later on people were just chucking stuff down the hole, and by the sounds of it, that would go in with Dilwyn's account of everything being mixed up.
Oh.
The bloke on the ladder looks like he's climbing up to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Wouldn't the blowhole let the rain in?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Here we go. I wanted to. Yeah, it would let the rain in. It would offer more erosion.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to at the end. I want to ask. I want to go through everybody. Right, we'll do David at the end because you know he buggers off. Right, Andy, anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I was wondering if there'd been already some erosion in there and it had washed a lot of the stuff that was just in a pile, and they decided that they would empty the cave rather than excavate it before they lost everything else. And that's why it only took 2 days. They just shipped it all straight out.
Yeah, that's a nice one. That ties in with that. Yeah, that's a nice one. What about you, Pat?
No, fascinating. Just always thought about it and wondered what was what. Thanks a lot. Oh, and Jess, I went to tell Jess I can't make it tomorrow night. I'm meeting with the American ladies, first time in 2 years. So.
Well, that sounds fantastic. You will be missed, Pat.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll see you the week after.
Okay, right, good.
The American ladies. That sounds ideal. I'm going to that one. Right. Who else have we done? We done Drina. We done Margaret. Who else is left now? We Claire, David, Jessica. Right, I'll go on. Andy, good. Andy's done his bit, hasn't he?
Yeah, I just said, yeah. I was talking about the washing it out and they just emptied it.
We know what David's going to do, right? So, David, anything you want to say tonight?
I think with the tide going in and out every day, everything would be smashed to smithereens. Wouldn't be any large bits.
Yeah.
I would think it was only very high tides that we would get in there.
Yeah.
But then again, how many high tides have happened over the past hundreds and hundreds of years? So
Once a fortnight.
Yeah.
No, exactly. So therefore, what David said, I would go along with that. And then there's that indication from Buckland. There's that indication from Buckland in his own notes about, are we going to lose everything? Why would we lose everything if it's been there for thousands of years? Do you know?
Thinking about things being nicked.
Oh yeah, right. What like mammoth skulls? David, if you're going to leave us now, right?
Yeah.
And
Bye,
anyway,
everybody.
night, David.
Bye, David. Night, David.
Night, David, babes. Night.
Bye.
Oh.
We lost Carl and all now, haven't we?
Oh, is everybody gone?
Was Carl with David? What's going on? There he has gone, hasn't
He's saying he's here, but nothing from Carl. Still showing maybe it's a connection issue. It is horrible weather today.
He is out in the wild, weary west, isn't he?
The wild,
Deepest,
wild
darkest
west.
Wales.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Good.
Oh, you're
Right,
back
sorry.
now.
Right. Okay. Right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can now. Yeah.
Right. What I was going to say, if we've still got Drina there,
Yes.
well, we haven't heard from Jess a minute. Jess, is there anything you want to say?
No, it was definitely interesting. I can't wait to teach her on Thursday, of course. I was wondering where you were going with all of this, so I'm glad that you've really sort of made it clear to me, because when you first mentioned it on Facebook earlier, I was just really confused because the information online, just from a quick search, is quite limited sometimes, and they don't really bring forward this. And Wikipedia, I hate it, but sometimes I normally go there for a basic research and then go on further. But it would just seem very vague.
Yeah, it is very vague. It is very vague. Right, what I'm going to ask Drina, right? Drina, do you go with what my line, or do you just feel that the evidence is enough to say that it was always buried there and it's a nice little story and that's the way it should be?
No, I'll go along with what you said. Definitely. Yeah.
Thanks.
Too
You
many-
don't have to, but thank you for that, Drina. And the only other one I'm going to go with, we know Pete can, thank you for that. We know Pete can be a pain in the bloody arse, but Pete, you're a man of the world, 75 and all the rest of it, right? Am I going along a good line, Pete, or am I completely backing off my head? Tell me.
Well, no, I think what you were saying made sense.
Too many questions.
I shouldn't admit to that, should I?
No, you should
No, go for barking. It's much more fun.
go back.
I did.
Right.
As you say, it's certainly, there's something missing there, yes.
Okay, thanks for that. And the only other thing I want to say is, anyone else got anything else they want to say tonight?
Have you said
Go
that?
on.
Sorry.
No.
Have
go on.
you actually discussed it with any other archaeologists?
They don't talk to him.
They don't talk to me. No, but basically on this one in particular, I wanted to keep my powder dry because it was going to be, it was going to be a presentation. It was going to be a release. It was going to be, but it just never happened, and it's just been kept on a back burner for 2 years, and I never did anything with it. And I just thought we may as well do this tonight, and that's basically the answer to your question.
Okay. I don't understand if Buckland found the skeleton in a different cave, he must have realized that it was a male at that point, mustn't he?
Why?
Anatomically, sometimes it's really difficult to work out a male and female, even if you've got all the bones there.
You need all the pelvis area, don't you?
Yeah.
If a woman's actually given birth, then it's a substantially different pelvis, and usually a woman's head is a skull is going to be smaller, and the usual thing, a woman's going to be shorter. And now
you're trying to say it's going to be thicker.
Why?
But the problem is, right, that's all completely wrong now, because women's bone structures throughout history are now being examined, and they are equal to men and female bone structures in skulls. So you can't really go with that anymore.
Yeah.
And if you've got an infection in your pelvic area and you're a male, that may be feminine looking anyway. So there's lots of problems to examining the osteology of a bone structure of a male and a female. And it's other testing that we need to go with to work out if it's a male or a female now.
I've just had an hormone injection for my prostate, and they tell me one of the side effects is I'll grow breasts.
Yeah. Well, Pete,
I'll keep you busy.
I've seen your breasts on that bed. Gina, did you want to say anything else, or is that it?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Right, we don't upset Gina. I nearly upset her.
I would like to say that I really like it when you argue with the accepted views. I like that. Makes you think.
It does make you think. And to be honest with you, I kept saying for the whole thing that I'm not necessarily saying that I'm definitely right, but no, the evidence is not there to say that it is right. And that is what I think Andy was saying, that is something not quite right. And then it goes back to the final question that you guys have been thinking all for most of this tonight. Why do they need to move it to this cave? And the answer simply is to prove a particular theory, to get all the evidence together at one spot, to make it impressive. That's what we're talking about. And actually accessible. How would he have been able to take all those women into the cave if it wasn't accessible? How would all the experts have gone into that cave? How could it have been found by accident if it wasn't accessible? All these questions hit to it being something not quite right.
So did he place all the periwinkle shells and everything, the whole scenario?
I'm actually thinking, I actually indicated earlier on, when we talked about the Talbot Sisters, I just thought it was like a feminine thing to do. Miss Talbot, it was like a feminine thing for her to have done. It's not the masculine thing to do. A masculine thing to, right? If it was going to be a male find, this is really important. This is an important point that we've completely missed. If it's a masculine find, right? If it's meant to be seen as a male, right? You would naturally see all the weapons for a male, and you wouldn't find periwinkles there. You wouldn't find ornaments. It'd be like stereotypical male stuff, axes and all this dangerous, horrible stuff. And he turned out to say it was a woman. That don't make sense either.
So
and you said earlier on,
Talbot Sisters in on this, in on it with him.
I reckon it's all a little bit of a game there. Everyone's in on it.
Oh God! But these are God-fearing people. They can't do
on a minute.
terrible things like that.
They're the worst.
How dare you say that? Because Christianity is a very honest thing, because the earth had only been around for less than 6,000 years, right?
Yeah.
4,000 years BC, right? That's fact. And the other thing as well is of him to have suggested that it was anything older than that would have been blasphemy. But he was trying to prove something else.
Yes, if it didn't fit in with the Bible stories, it wasn't real.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, Phil Collins, Jesus loves you and he knows you're right. I've been talking to Jesus all my life.
I think we need to be careful again on this one, because whilst they certainly don't add up, they also don't add up to being fake either, do they?
No.
It adds up to
they're
being
real in the fact that they are bones and they were staying.
They are real.
The site adds up to being questionable.
Yes,
certainly, but it could be true. So.
Yeah. So the artifacts are not fake, but the adding up is.
Yeah.
The answers lie in the Beatles, apparently.
Yeah, and sadly, there's been too many kind of, so we say, I don't know, less professional by today's standards excavations.
Well, all in a basket. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they've all kind of gone about it in a random way, haven't they? So it's a bit of a shame, but there may be a reason for that. They may have been rescuing, so.
Basket case, exactly. Yeah. Roman artifacts alongside mammoth skulls. I love it.
I mean the shells. I mean Seagull could have dropped them in there, couldn't it? So
He could have been having a picnic.
He could have been having a picnic. Why not? Yeah, absolutely. Why not? It's there's thousands of years potentially of little stories and individual items going in there, and that don't relate to each other at all. So.
No, they don't. They don't relate to each other at all. No, they don't.
That's where your stratigraphy is so important, and we haven't got. That's the one bit we haven't got. So
we haven't got any stratigraphy. It's all jumbled up, as in the words. It was mixed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then on that, if nobody's got anything else they want to say on that one, which is we've Dave's gone, Claire's gone. If there's nothing else to say, look forward to seeing whoever tomorrow night with me. I know Pat's not going to be there tomorrow for Jess, but obviously we'll see you all next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Looking forward to next week. And what did I say we were doing next week? Craswell Crags.
Craswell Crags. Yeah.
And it's going to be done Craswell Crags, like a Liverpudlian, like.
Oh, well, let Rena say that. Let Rena say it.
Don't you come over here like that, No, I don't go there, like you go. Down there.
In Yorkshire.
No, you got no.
No,
actually, it's not in Yorkshire. It's in Derbyshire. We're all wrong.
Oh, are they? I didn't realize that far south.
No, hang on a minute. I thought it was it's on the border between the two, isn't it, Andy?
It might be.
Definitely, maybe by Oasis. We love
absolutely. Yeah, I'll go with that.
Definitely.
Someone's moved it.
Yeah, exactly. It's always been moved. Move the goalposts.
Yeah.
Butland's been there. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, scored a goal. Anyway, right. Okay. All right then. If there's nothing else, anyone wants to chat, they can at the end quickly. If there's nothing else, I'm going to now formally close this class. This has been a long one. 10:06. Pat was supposed to be in bed half an hour ago. She was supposed to have a cookie. So anyway, that's all good. So I've enjoyed this tonight. So I'm going to say good night to Andy, Margaret, Drina, Claire, who's gone, David, who's gone, Peter, Jessica, and Pat, Andy, and everyone who knows me. I've done everybody, haven't I? So
good night, all.
See you next week, lovelies. Take
Good
care.
night. Good night.
Thanks, Carl. Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Bye.
Bye. Good night, guys. And hermaphrodites. Don't forget them. So yes. So who's there left now? So yeah,
it's just me.
We're still on We're still on live, right? And amazing enough, we're still on 6 people now. We've got that Brian Adams. Thanks, Carl and co. One love from Lanetley. And we've got that person who corrected me is Ecosia, the free thingamajig. We'll just put Claire's all of Claire's comments on there, which should be really interesting. We'll read these out from Zoom. All the messages from Zoom are gone because I lost connection. Now, don't worry about it. Claire thought it was a load of. She wasn't impressed. Do you know? I think the I think the one thing is about the why would this be forged in the first place? But why would all that evidence be there anyway? It just doesn't add up. And why would this be missing and that? And there's excuses for this and that. People haven't done examination. And it is, if you've got animals eating away at the bones, why is there no marks on the bones? Because the other ones are gone. Oh my God. And the skull, I didn't make enough of the skull disappearing from his desk, did I? Oh my God, I've just lost the Mammoth Skull. Where is it? The cleaner must have damaged it. So we got another one from Bridgend who says, Ta Bridgend. Anyone else is on there? That's it. So anything you want to say just before we finish?
No, just interesting. Thank you, Carl.
We got to do a poll. Oh, let's do a poll. There's a poll on you. Have you enjoyed tonight? Oh, there's a yes or a no one. Oh, ask your community. Oh God, we'll ask the community to see if they have. Funny business indeed. Oh, is that Brian Adams again? Brian Adams. Hey, we've got to check this Ecosia thing out, I think. Oh, hang on a minute. Hang on. Somebody's voted on the poll. I don't know if have they? Don't know. Funny business indeed. Yeah, so it should be easier next week, Jess.
Perfect. Fantastic.
One person, the poll closed with one person saying yes.
Good. Well,
that's 100%, isn't it?
Yeah, 100% success rate, Carl. Can't argue that.
Hey, mind you, somebody on Facebook, right? They certain person on Facebook said, "Oh, you can't say this," and I'm saying, well, if you want to say something, then say it. Come online, What
was it? Was this said about tonight?
Carol Ballard on Facebook said, "Oh, why do you disagree?" And I just thought, well, why didn't you listen? Why didn't you come on?
I think the issue is that a lot of people seem to think that history, because an expert has said something or is always been accepted, is that people don't really question it. And I think this is where we end up with a lot of issues. I think a lot of people seem to think that history and archaeology are facts, and they can be sometimes, but on a whole, it's a debate, it's interpretation, and that's what it all boils down to. And I think what we've seen tonight is that the evidence just does not seem to make any sense in some aspects.
It just doesn't stack up. It really doesn't. It doesn't stack up at all. So
I think that's all I have to say really to anyone that's watching, is that archaeology and history, it's not fact, it's not gospel. You can debate it, and there's been things that have come out, well, I can't think off the top of my head, but recently where they've disproven something, like you said, Carl, with Piltdown Man.
Well, why didn't you just come out when they say history's a load of bollocks?
But it's not. It's just there are facts, but it's just the way you put those facts, if that makes sense. I think sometimes some people get those facts and they align them way differently than what they should do. I think the facts are more the hints as to what's going on, and we have to piece them together like a puzzle. And sometimes you can just piece them together wrong.
Yeah, exactly. This Carol Ballard on you, she's from Lampeter University. She says, "Why is it a fake?" And whilst I'm teaching, I put "watch my channel," and she says, "I'm afraid I don't have time at the moment, but I don't see how it's fake." So you expect me to spend my time writing to you on you, and you can't be bothered to watch the thing in the first place. So what is the point? Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, Carl. Just put a link to the video on there, and she can watch it when she's got the time, haven't she?
Oh, here we go. You know that Oh no, you know that thing about the Claire,
Yeah.
the Claire song, right? Well, here we go. Click. Hang on a minute. Claire said on there. She said, here we go. Hang on a minute. What she said? No, lol. You haven't black hair. It doesn't apply. And she said, thank goodness I dyed it. And apparently it's the gospel truth that everything in history is true. I don't know what that's about.
Gosh. God
Oh,
knows.
God. Exactly. Right, on that note, we'll call it a night.
Right, night, Carl.
Night, and we'll see you tomorrow hanging about the bus shelter.
Yes, Carl, 100%.
Did you used to hang around the bus shelter with the boys?
No, I used to hang around, when I was a kid, I used to hang around the brook and catch loads of fish and put them in a bucket and then put them back again. It was only tiny little fish, but that's what I was doing. I was a bit of a weirdo.
Yeah.
Used to catch fish with my hands.
God. Right,
Anyway,
okay.
Carl, I'll see you tomorrow.
On that note, I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Nosta, bye. Nosta, bye. Bye. Thanks for joining us. Anyway, thanks for everybody watching. Recommend you check out lots of other videos on the channel. It's been a great one tonight, and yeah, it's been a good one. I've still got 6 people on there, and I just keep watching my stuff. There's lots of stuff on the channel, and oh, I tell you what, this is a nice little one. It's nothing to do with the Pavlan Cave, but Brian Evans, watch this year. Watch that. I'm off, everybody. Nostachi, Golachiato, ach, dosbath nesaf wythnos, ac dim problem yn gael amser, ac 7 o'r gloch, ac hanner 7 o'r gloch. Diolch yn fawr chi, gwelwch chi eto. Da iawn. Nos da. Finid nawr. Don't forget to like and subscribe.